YouTube comments from a video titled What US Insurance Companies Aren't Telling You, Informer. Part 7.
At Songbird 4, Lily wrote,
And it's people like you, ma'am, sir, whoever you are in disguise, not blowing the whistle and having the courage. So I don't have any empathy for you until you come forward.
At Emmett 5274 wrote,
My boyfriend got hit on his bicycle by a pickup truck, and a couple weeks later, we got notified that their insurance company, USAA, determined he was at fault and should pay them $2,500 for their client's vehicle to get the dent out. They literally ran through an intersection with a watch for bicyclists signposted. How TF was it his fault? Total scam.
At Wyoming Herald wrote,
To be clear, folks, if there are Americans that are willing to do this to other Americans who are truly suffering, just imagine what your own military will do to you if they are told to do so. Without the financial incentives, they would do it for sport. This is where America sits right now. Buckle up, because the will get worse in January 2025.
At Chabria Braziel, De Silva 3216 wrote,
I work in oncology authorizations. It's evil how these insurance companies deny sick patients that ARE fighting TO live insurance companies need to be regulated. They are ETHE real life mafia scammers.
Chickadee Bunny wrote,
Every time I've ever said insurance is a scam, people come at me and defend it. It goes to show how well they have programmed individuals with fear.
At Foot Travel 2873 wrote,
The way insurance company operates is like a racket or a Ponzi scheme on a massive level. Watch the video Senator Elizabeth Warren versus the United Healthcare CEO last year. United Healthcare brought in over.
At Low_Gun wrote,
This is exactly how student loan debt collectors do it. My experience is that if you are poor, healthcare is free. If you don't own anything, no one can take it.
At Brent Davidson 1 wrote,
This person was a debt collector. They are supposed to find out if someone has insurance and pursue the insurance company. This would 100% get shut down if properly reported.
At Kate Cook 9963 wrote,
This requires the same common sense as looking both ways before you walk into the street. We don't need an insider to tell us basic knowledge.
Castaneda 562 wrote,
Once birth rate collapse accelerated the veil of smoke and mirrors revealed the true nature of all insurance industries. It's a massive pyramid scheme. Bernie Madoff was just the beginning.
At Cali Dreams 5379 wrote,
It's obviously not just healthcare. The greedy cannot ever have enough, it seems. The greedy were better off when people didn't have to worry about food on their tables and shelters over their heads.
At Marin Jones 6665 wrote,
Reminder, it's not just refusal to cover. It's refusal to pay. Even if your insurance company agrees to pay for treatment, they will only pay a fraction. That's it. They just don't pay what they agree to pay. And if a hospital or doctor makes a fuss, they just drop them from the network, which effectively kills their business. This is also why hospital services cost so much. Hospitals keep raising their prices to compensate for not being paid.
And Mike Schaefer wrote,
I remember a few weeks after my mother died of a 10-year battle with cancer. I was 16 and my sister was 18. A debt collector called from some insurance company and said we need payment. My sister told them that my mother was dead. The debt collector said, well, can you pay? My sister hung up. Horrible.
At Roy Nichols 5212 wrote,
I was airlifted out of the Bahamas to Tampa, Florida,
St. Petersburg Hospital after contracting pneumonia. Yeah, I know, pneumonia in the Bahamas. I had insurance. Thankfully. When I finally recovered and eventually got back home, my doctor was looking over all the medical procedures that I had. He said it was well north of 500 grams, not including the medevac flight. WTF. How could the average Joe afford something like that, even with the brutal coverage you get in the States? As you can probably guess, I am a Canadian, and the main reason I only spend a few hours in the States whenever I cross the border. What a FCKDF system, for profit.
At VicLen 51 wrote,
People need to understand that medical care is NOT healthcare. Medical care is best for crises/emergency care, but they know nothing about how to keep an individual healthy or how to regain health with chronic illness. I can say as someone who worked at a community-based nonprofit hospital that the focus was on the best patient care possible. Employees were treated very well also. When laws were changed that allowed big for-profit corporations were allowed to take over with the claim that patient care will improve because we know how to innovate and run businesses, the opposite happened. Patient care went downhill. Regard for him life went downhill. Doctors went from respected professionals with autonomy of decision-making for individual treatment to employees of the companies held hostage to approved treatment protocols that have killed people. Just look at the mess of the pandemic protocols that really made no sense to medical personnel with years of experience.
Teferian wrote,
Please make another video with health insurance informer, preferably 2 informers, one for hospital CEOs overcharging on care and one for insurance CEOs over denying claims.
At Cyber_Homestead wrote,
This reminds me of a bill collector calling my number for someone I didn't know. This went on for at least 2 years and only stopped when I changed my number. Fortunately, they weren't too aggressive, but I'd sometimes get 3 calls in a week for this person.
T345M wrote,
Same thing applies in most sales job. Sales is cutthroat. The company encourages the salesperson to screw people over as much as possible. The more heartless you are, the bigger your check will be.
At NYC Guy 7 wrote,
If you get one of those phone calls, talk to the bill collector like a 900 number. Be explicit and gross. They will hang up and leave you alone quick.
At Cogito Ergo Sum Fortis wrote,
I've seen cartel confusion videos with less identity protection than with these insurances. Just remember, fentanyl was created by the US pharmaceutical industry, so yeah, I would fear these big healthcare corporations as well.
At Kakwe Calliope wrote,
Working for any insurance company is selling your soul. I have a friend who used to work for the lizard company. He could sell salt to a snail but would still try to help out his customers as discreetly as he could, trying to guide his callers in the right direction to apply for insurance based on their needs, or to submit claims, but try to make subtle suggestions on how to phrase things to receive coverage. Some people caught on, others didn't. He tells me if he ever had to go back into insurance to make money, he'd essentially have to become so self-absorbed he'd cut off close friends and family.
Asimp 1602 wrote,
Healthcare only wants to pay a percentage of what a procedure will cost. So hospitals raise the price so they get what they want from insurance. I've been blown away when I didn't have insurance but needed medical help. I asked them if they had an uninsured rate. Most do, and it is blindingly low. Almost lower than my co-pays. The trick is that if the hospital knows you have insurance, they won't let you get the lower uninsured rate. The healthcare in the USA is very good in that we can go to very secure and clean facilities to get care without any prior notice. What is not great is the greed and lack of empathy from healthcare back offices. For-profit hospitals and healthcare facilities drive patients into corners. My opinion is that procedures need a flat rate, and anyone getting that procedure shouldn't have crazy fear of how much it will cost. Most insurance companies will pay for a colonoscopy as long as it is routine and not diagnostic. The diagnostic type is for them to decide, because the language the coding systems use to define how a routine procedure became a diagnostic procedure in the middle of it happening is crazy. Regular people are not healthcare coding professionals, and the volume of coding errors makes going to the doctor such a pain. I had a really bad sinus infection, so I was referred to an ENT doctor. He had a scope in his office that he used for 1/10,000th of a second on my nose. That was seen as an outpatient medical procedure and wasn't pre-approved. I pushed back on this because that alone was $500. I later found out this doctor was notorious for not mentioning this or abusing it when it wasn't necessary. I don't know what is or is not covered because no one tells the consumer. Doctors don't usually know what their treatments cost, they are just the technician who does the task. It is that back office bull crap that makes it impossible to understand. Asking ahead how much a procedure will cost just gets a we don't know what your insurance will cover yet, but the procedure has been scheduled for months. This needs to be simplified in a way that allows patients to understand their healthcare decisions and better understand their options.
At Circus Bean 937 wrote,
When I was 17, I got in a car accident on my way to school, and the other person's car was totaled. His insurance company would call and threaten to suspend my license and sue me for $25,000 after my insurance had already given them $10,000. I just had a feeling something wasn't right, so I got legal advice. I found out I live in a state where they can't suspend my license, nor could they sue me for $25,000 as a minor for an accident where I wasn't at fault. Once I found out they were lying, I blocked their number and have never heard from them since. Insurance is a scam in the U.S.
At Lil Sabin wrote,
What a lot of people don't know or don't realize is that our entire model is based on the insurance industry. Insurance started back during the slave trade. If the insurance industry goes down, a lot of things will crumble. It is like real estate.
At Nutnuta wrote,
I have gotten phone calls from other parts of the world trying to make me pay stuff or saying they have better rates and stuff. I'm convinced that the amount of money that I have spent by just answering those outside of country calls is already insane.
At Called Chose Nan Faithful wrote,
People voted this in. When Obamacare was to pass, Pelosi said you have to pass it in order to read it. Never before had a politician stood up to defy America and yet get the bill passed. All those who voted for this are responsible for this mess. The people who voted for those politicians and never spoke up are responsible. These crooked politicians all got paid by big insurance companies or had kickbacks. Americans, blame yourself for not holding your politicians accountable for their actions. Companies are greedy, but people are apathetic. Go back to sleep now.
The Psyop Switch wrote,
It's such a shame that we can't get any politicians that aren't owned by the corpse to tax billionaires are of existence. He don't understand how people could want to live and work like this. I would rather starve and be homeless than do this to people willingly. I'm not religious in the slightest. I'm not a kind-hearted person. I won't take much crap, but this I couldn't do and just don't understand the mentality that can.
At Joseph Medina 6403 wrote,
Medicare is all right in my eyes. My father had a heart attack and what we thought was a transient ischemic attack TIA, but nurses and doctors treated us like family.
At Itinerant Vagabond wrote,
In late stage capitalism, a business that merely pulls in profits at a steady pace is seen as a failure. Success equals continual unchecked growth of profits. In biology, we have a word for continual unchecked growth called cancer. And the American host is being killed by the cancer, by this, and by debt. Trillions of dollars of debt.
At Achy Bones 588 wrote,
I'm a new paramedic in Canada, and while I've always thought it would be so cool to work in New York or a similarly huge American city, I absolutely refuse to be part of this evil system.
At Aranava 2985 wrote,
Like it's not just the insurance companies, any tech company nowadays lets go of any old employee. No joke, I know someone who got fired for looking too old and making too much.
At Note a Spectator wrote,
I wish that there were ways insurance companies of any size were audited with ethical practices in mind. P.S. An old friend went on to essentially try to get as much money as possible with a lawyer from an insurance company, but honestly, he was getting greedy and deserved that they took him to court. He spent 5 years on this process. It's important to advocate for yourself and learn how to do that, but not get greedy. Personally, I had an incredible good experience with Allstate in Canada after a crash, where I admitted to being at fault in an accident kind of way, pillar blocking and light. Accountability is hard, and the only way to live, I think. Agents were kind and supportive, and when I needed to press, I did it without blame or emotional demands. They worked with me. I've had an instance where a mutual fault happened and the person followed their policy without trying to take into consideration an honest fact and mistake. I was upset for a few weeks, but moved on. I still made sure to send clarification emails and try to copy their staff, so at least I leave the task completely done. I've heard so many people in Toronto area just thinking it's so great to defraud auto insurance. Heck, we all pay for this crap.
At CYNTHG 9547 wrote,
So I was in a car accident at age 21. Guy ran a stop sign on a busy street. Speed limit was 65. I was probably going 70 miles per hour and turned my car so hard not hit guy who ran stop sign, and my car flipped front to back. Few times I broke my back, and I had no health insurance. Guy had no insurance, and I only had cheap insurance that didn't really pay out. My hospital was 130,000 for 31 days, and my mom played nurse cause they didn't help me. I could not go to rehab afterwards. My feet curled like a scarecrow and had to have total of 3 back surgeries cause my first rod fell into my pelvis. Then I almost died cause home healthcare nurse left antibiotics cause in a wound for 5 months. I was septic and had a bone infection, and I had staph altogether. I was on 3 antibiotics. One of them was so strong it was called vancomycin. All IV antibiotics, cause none infected, would not work with pills. The doctor said if I would waited 2 more days I would died.
At the Voice of Reason 4 you wrote,
In Canada, I used to work for a large insurer, several actually, from adjusting to management. Companies are heavily regulated up here, but many of these practices still exist up here. I was lucky the company I worked for the longest was going through a 5-year period of just pay the claims. The theory was that it would save us so much more in legal and other costs, and that was what we were there to do. Man, that job was easy and a joy to be at every day with that type of setup. We would still investigate egregious claims, obviously. Yeah, but going through a life insurance claim now for my mother coming up on a year and very little movement. They will likely deny the $30,000 policy she has, and I will have to litigate for another year, because these companies really don't care about you at all.
At SB80 wrote,
I've worked in healthcare administration/technology my entire adult life, and nothing surprises me. It's weird because the way payers operate isn't exactly a secret, but it's also not really known, probably because so much political attention goes to other issues. One of the things that I'll never forget is when I was working for a large nationwide HCO and being tasked to set up a monthly utility that searches through recently deceased oncology patients looking for missed charges. I couldn't imagine losing someone to cancer and still being nickel and dimed. Every single person, regardless of political affiliation and background, will need some kind of medical care in their life, and yet it never gets discussed on a larger scale.
As P4V wrote,
There needs to be more Luigis out there. The people of this country needs thousands of battle-hardened Luigis until our government does the correct thing and nationalizes healthcare for all citizens. No charge.
Totally John wrote,
I'm gonna be honest and say that I don't really empathize with the person in this video. You know that everyone needs healthcare, and yet you go and work for the companies upholding the exploitation. Nah, you couldn't give me enough money to do something so soulless. I'd be waking up trying to get a job at MC Donald's before working for these morally deprived tumors on our society.
Navk010 wrote,
It's all intended. The government is supposed to take care of its people. That's what we were taught, but that's a lies. No matter what side you're on, red or blue, you'll be getting FGED. Everything is construction for the rich. Strive for the best people so you won't have to worry much.
Becca Lee 7744 wrote,
The nurse at the second hospital whispered to me that I shouldn't have told the first hospital who my infant's insurance carrier was, and to never do so again. Sadly, we never got to test out that advice. The meningitis they ignored caused her to have 6 strokes overnight, which she did not survive.
Aditi Kidwell wrote,
Debt collectors do stuff like that. More than once I had debt collectors threaten legal action against me for debts that clearly weren't mine. They would say because they have my phone number, or in one case, someone gave them my name, that I was now legally responsible for the bill.
Julian Gonzalez 1974 wrote,
Just so everyone knows, health insurance is voluntary. Insurance can be a good thing. The evidence of coverage will spell out what is and is not covered. You can get a copy of it. You see and read it. Most won't. Also, this dude is a debt collector. They don't work for an insurance company.
Rainbow Rave wrote,
I work in public sector insurance, and even ACA rules prevent sudden illness from being a defining factor of sign up, and then they tax you for not having it.
Sir Kortsak 5082 wrote,
I actually love when these guys call me. I tell them to go flying F-seek themselves, and that they can just report my debt to the credit bureaus and shove off. I haven't paid a single medical bill in 20 years. My credit score just stays put in the mid-700s.
Ty Tyler 7099 wrote,
Remember, if you're someone sitting at a desk making these calls to people, YOUARE, just AS horrible AS that CE. EO IDEO and OT care, find a different job. We cannot enable this.
Black Psychedelic wrote,
I worked for a call center that priced apartments for customers. I spoke to an elderly lady who was looking for a home for herself and her dog after her current housing gave her a notice that she would be forced to move. I told her the price for the apartments and she just started crying on the phone. I immediately left, cried in the car, and accepted that I was unemployed until I could find a job that would keep me out of the misery business. I couldn't imagine doing anything for an insurance company. It should be an automated system if they want cold humans.
I know Raf wrote,
Sullivan and Associates keeps calling me looking for a guy that used to have this number. Constantly calling looking for him. They let his last name slip once. It's been a few months since the last call, so I'm expecting another one any day now.
Glyke 2 wrote,
Bullshit Jabs is a great book that describes these jabs in health insurance, administration jabs needed to fight the insurance companies and medical debt collectors. They need to be cancelled just like elevator operators.
Edmer wrote,
It boggles my mind how crippled interest and insurance-based monetary system has made Western world. Thank God for Sharia-based interest-free economy systems that keep Middle East countries and their people safe and secure.
A Dear Humanity wrote,
What a truly sad, evil, and pathetic society Americans live in. Not anything new either, and they did it to themselves, like always. Worshipping consumerism, poor education, lack of traveling, full of American propaganda, and an easily plus willfully distracted and compliant population. No public healthcare system in place. And all of this within an insane asylum society. This is America.
Mandy648 wrote,
I had one of these people call me to collect a $20 bill, and when he asked why I hadn't paid it, I said, "We lost a child, and it slipped through the cracks." He started crying on the phone and never called me again. I hope that day he quit his job and found one that brought him purpose.
Ethnocean Thematitanic wrote,
So I'm being forced in some cases to pay a large amount of money to debate if I'm worthy enough to receive a service I'm paying for. Also, if I actually receive said service, I will get punished anyway. Insurance, in nutshell, complete scam.
BlackRazor69 wrote,
1CE. O will not cover the deductible that insurance companies have incurred. There will need to be one for every citizen that died due to having their paid coverage denied.
Warthog10 wrote,
Insurance companies take all the money customers pay and invest it very aggressively for maximum gains. When a claim is made, they will take the amount they believe will may be awarded eventually and invest it in more aggressively and stall as long as they can. Typically 2 to 5 years through legal process. By the time they have to pay out, they have either recovered that amount or more through their aggressive investing. Thus, they never actually lose money in payouts. They view all the money customers pay as their money.
Shanson65456 wrote,
Is this a new video? I don't know what really happened to Vice after HBO bought them, I believe it was. Terrible financial handling, then selling, really puts a giant gash into a publication that was amazingly shocking to witness during its inception. I was surprised Vice was allowed to go to /report on such crazy a lot illegal places /topics etc.
An alien from outer space wrote,
If insurance companies are doing it, imagine what else in other industries are going on. Year over year, we are getting to the point of no return, to the point that someone will just declare war on the entire system and just go plainly on killing spree.
Don't Worry About It 12 wrote,
Stop crying and get to work. They disappear after 7 years. This isn't something new you kids deal with. We have all dealt with it. Stop getting sick.
Christina Marie 3598 wrote,
So what we are really hearing, if no one will work for these companies, we reduce them. Companies perpetuate this by having others work for them and perform these horrors. That isn't all of it, but it is a good portion of. They are selling themselves to be a part of doing harm to others.
Tony Too Short wrote,
The fact that they set up the commission structure so that these employees have to be as vicious as possible in order to make the most money as possible is a prime example of why we need to stop fighting each other and realize who the actual problem is. They're pitting us against each other for far too long, and it has to stop if we ever want to get our gov and our life back.
Ed Macarambles wrote,
I am $50,000 in debt after an unalive attempt that did not require actual treatment, basically. I did not take enough of the medication to actually harm my body. All they did was monitor me. They didn't even feed me anything until my mom threw a fit that everyone else in the ER had a meal and I didn't. Do I wish I wasn't here? No, I am happy it didn't work. But man, now I've got that chunk of cash and my $80,000 in student loans to pay. I am 26 and can't afford to move out from my parents' place because of it.
Egyptology wrote,
Had a concussion and my doctor immediately asked for a CAT scan. United Healthcare requested that I wait a week so that I could receive coverage. How should I wait a week to check for signs of internal bleeding?
At Hazy Views 999 wrote,
Super stoked all the insurance workers are walking on eggshells now. If this is you or your partner's job, quit. Do humanity and yourself a favor and leave any insurance company. Every single one is a scam institution legally allowed by the government.
Ted 11 L5R wrote,
This is the pain behind the Luigi case. I don't want violence in the streets, but you also have to acknowledge the violence by spreadsheet these companies do.
Coco Clicacoclo wrote,
This is so heartbreaking. I'm from Germany, so I've only ever known free healthcare. I had times when I had to go to the doctor every other day, or even now my mother, who has cancer and needs a lot of medical support. We are struggling a lot with our financial situation at the moment, which is why it breaks my heart to imagine what it would be like if we lived in a country like the USA in terms of that situation. Whether it's dentists, gynecologists, psychologists, general practitioners, or specialists, hospitals, and rehabs, here you go straight to the doctor when something is wrong. Although we do have the difficulty here of getting an appointment promptly if it's not an emergency, because we suffer from a shortage of specialists. Sometimes you have to wait weeks or months. When I think about what my family and I have already had in terms of surgeries, hospital stays, examinations, and medication, no normal person could have paid for that. Even the medication. You pay €5 here, and the rest is covered by health insurance. If you reach a certain amount per year, they'll cover all from then on. Yesterday alone, we would have paid around €300 plus if we lived in a different healthcare system. We only had to pay €15 as it was for 3 different prescriptions. I hope so much that you will find a solution soon because it is already hard enough when you're sick and having all that medical care. But without it, or ruining your and your family's whole life be sea of debts. SHT. That is inhumane. As the first world, super advanced country the US is, I can't comprehend it. You, the people, your government should really take care of y'all and force some rules on those insurances or get free health care for everyone as it is in Europe. We are partners and friends. We are all civilized Western countries, so WTH, isn't your government able to handle this situation? Sarcastic question. I know capitalism, but still, guys, that's not normal. God bless y'all. Merry Christmas, and have a Happy New Year soon. Let's all hope that 2025 gonna be a better year, with a lot of changes and blessings.
Calyptus 2 wrote,
Do you know who is the real responsible for all this? The Congress and senators who allow by law this to happen. They are the ones accountable. They should be reforming the system. Why people are not forcing them to do so?
At Animal Hauser wrote,
I left the healthcare insurance company I worked for similar reasons. We screw over the patients and providers. We never are given the time to really explain things to them because we could eventually sell them out of the insurance. Denting medically necessary services was the worst because the company just didn't want to spend extra for anyone. Like, what was the insurance for?
As Superman Hopkins wrote,
$329 $250 every 2 weeks is literally $500 a month. Who in the world can afford $500 a month on top of everything else you have to pay for just to stay alive?
At Secretosocrates 7618 wrote,
651 that actually makes sense. My brother was in debt for a BMW that he was in an accident for, but he still had to make payments on it. I don't know the entire scope of the accident, but BMW services called me 3 times this year looking for him. I think that he used my number when he signed for the car, but this was also a possibility of collecting information to get in contact with anyone who, and get him to start making payments. I believe that another agent is going to try to call me again in the future for something I have no involvement over.
At TND 78 wrote,
Everything is an illusion. The U.S. was officially downgraded to an anocracy in 2021. Legalized corruption, and the government is behind it all. From lax regulations and oversight, driven by politicians bought off by the elite, industry, and lobbyists, and so forth.
At Minyabinu 2102 wrote,
It's still insurance, but the person speaking worked in car and / or property insurance. I point this out because people in the comments section are talking about their nightmarish experiences with health insurance, United Health specifically, and I don't think they realize this person is unrelated. Sure, insurance companies have horrible practices, but health insurance companies have malicious policies that are unique to them. This video doesn't discuss that and is off the mark. To anyone looking for an actual expose of how twisted United Health is, I suggest watching the video The Many Crimes of United Healthcare Explained by a YouTube channel called Fads. It's a short video, but it accurately depicts the corrupt company with proof for its claims.
At JCA 51698 wrote,
If a third-party collection agency contacts you about a debt, you have the right to tell them to stop contacting you. It's called cease and desist. Look up the FDCPA.
At Nicaservin 2078 wrote,
Swede here, born and raised. I thought you might be interested in how the healthcare system works in Sweden. As you probably know, we have universal healthcare, which means we pay very little when we need medical care. A doctor's appointment costs around $20, an appointment with a therapist about $15, and a visit to a nurse approximately $10. If you need to visit the doctor several times a year, the costs can add up. That's why we have something called Hawkisnadskith, roughly translated as high-cost protection. This means you only pay up to a cap of around $130 per year for healthcare. For example, if you have 12 doctor's appointments in a year, you'll still only pay about $130. The same principle applies to medication, where the annual cap is approximately $240. What if you get seriously ill and need hospitalization? Children up to 18 years old don't pay anything. Adults pay around $20 per day during their hospital stay. Hospitalization costs are also covered by the high-cost protection, so even if you've had 12 doctor's appointments and stayed in the hospital for 20 days, you'll still pay no more than about $130 annually. How about the ambulance? Depending on the region, it costs around $20, but you don't need to pay if it's life-threatening or if you are under 19 or over 85 years old. Our healthcare system isn't perfect, but we can't really comprehend the reality Americans face where you can be denied healthcare. It's a human right. I really hope you take this opportunity to fight for your health. For those who wonder about taxes in Sweden, We pay 30% in taxes, but are never denied health care.
At Bill Nye 69 wrote,
I've seen Americans who have moved to Canada scared to use the public healthcare here. I'm not saying our healthcare system is perfect or doesn't have its own messed up issues, but seeing people worried to get a basic checkup. Example, going to the doctor even as a non-citizen and you just get looked at for a prescription. The fee is only $50. Where I live anyway.
At Hoser Mandiasel 2468 wrote,
There's one of them collection centers nested in the local medical complex here in this very REDPNW city. While I do agree, this is just a symptom of our greedy monkey society. We all need to look in the mirror and stop just following orders. For those who studied history.
Jasmine's 6325 wrote,
Beware of jihadis hijacking conflicts, class, gender, etc. to promote terrorism. The 1% will always exist, but better a 1% that allows freedom of expression that properly builds roads, etc. Also, no one is free under Sharia law.
KP the G wrote,
This is the same with all insurance companies. Home and auto. I worked for State Farm and Allstate. These agents were only worried about the numbers. 90% of the time, they give you high deductibles, change your mailing address, and even omit things on your policy, so if you need to file a claim, you will get denied. Check your policy, especially your life insurance and auto insurance policies. If you were referred by your car dealer especially, check the limits on your policy. They get a kickback for referrals and often give you the highest deductible possible just to make the sale.
At John 5601 wrote,
Insurance company ruined my life. The American government helped them. Now I'm waking up in a 51 degrees F room with no water for $1,000 a month. I told these stupid doctors not to bother keeping me alive. There's no point. They said I had plenty of insurance to cover everything. I had enough money saved. I said, this is America. Don't bother. America sucks. I hate this country because all it does is torture people. This country forces suffering. I'm so glad I never had kids that will have to suffer the pain of being American. I'm disabled now, and I'm a white man. Why do these scumbag doctors keep people alive? They could have just lied and let me die instead of doing this to me. America steals everything.
A 650 dude wrote,
And some PPL will get on their knees to kiss the boots of this country man. With veterans on the streets and thousands homeless, but we gotta swindle PPL with medical debits.
Jakes G wrote,
Approach such as, either you or me, is disgusting. After all, it's an individual's decision to work for such a company that enables workers' earnings by causing harm to another human being. There are still people in the world, such as this speaker.
At Jaded 16900 wrote,
I haven't had health insurance for more than 3 years. I make too much for Medicaid, but can't afford my state's low-income paid plan. I'm in my 50s, and know I'm only one illness or accident away from financial ruin.
At Grace 6424, X1H wrote,
Yet here we are glamorizing murdering the CEO when the whole chain is full of morally bankrupt people perpetuating the system. Do you think these companies would be able to do what they do without the greedy bootlickers at the bottom of them?
At Medina Dan wrote,
For those who believe that the United States will still be a democracy in 2 years, I have an insurance policy to sell you that is dirt cheap.
At John Bruin 8755 wrote,
It blows my mind Elon Musk is taking so much criticism. What about Larry Fink? My God, the Dark Lord Fink controls so many of these insurance companies and banking industry. Where's the outrage for that evil, greedy monster?
Cryora wrote,
When shopping for insurance, you have to factor in the probability of them denying your claims, just like how actuaries calculate the probability of a person needing to file a claim into how much to charge in order to make a profit. If they can find ways to deny more claims, that only raises their profit margin, and that will naturally be what they are going to do. Buy insurance to be in compliance with the law, but do your darnest not to have to use the insurance, and have money saved up in case the worst happens and you need to pay for something that the insurance company should have paid for but won't.
and Joyles wrote,
Okay, thanks for the info. But what's the company name? We still go nowhere with this interview. But we are grateful for the info we already knew.
H4 and Crafted wrote,
Unum is another major cancer spreading its insurance structure into the UK disability benefits system, and who knows how many other European countries. These insurance companies try and spread their disease.
At Flytographist wrote,
The shareholders' boss, the shareholders. People like to point at the executives, justifiably so. However, they never note the legions of mom and pop shareholders fueling it, themselves as individuals, or through mutual and equity groups and pension plans. For some reason, the majority think it's a plug-and-play scenario. For example, you know those trailer parks on the edge of your town, some nice, others not so much. The last and only stop before homelessness? Well, the shareholders are gobbling them up now too and doing exactly what they always do, pretending not to know the outcome.
At Adam Hanlon 7418 wrote,
Wait. You mean to tell me that multi-billion-dollar companies don't care about people and purposely make decisions to hurt people all for profit? That's shocking. Please don't ruin my ideals of pharmaceutical companies then.
Prudhavanot wrote,
We most likely wouldn't be seeing this if it wasn't for the CEO event. And when you see what's playing out with the shooter in terms of the propaganda, it pretty much tells us who's kissing whose ass. It expands into why many are leaving their jobs for a better life, etc. People are done with the stupidity. Just done.
At Ethereum 369 wrote,
As a Kenyan, I'm so happy that although we only have like 3 functional hospital chains, our insurance doesn't work like this. And our doctors are highly skilled and globally educated. Something as simple as an MRI, X-ray, and even surgery is accessible to most people now. And with socialized healthcare, since most people cannot afford the private insurance, which truly isn't that expensive for employed people, even manual workers in the village can afford to get limbs fixed after injuries and infections cured easily. Diseases like sickle cell are also easier to manage. USA isn't great anymore because human beings' dignity isn't prioritized and wealth isn't enjoyed by everyone. So can they really say they live better than majority of the world? Isolation, homelessness, poor healthcare, and division. Is this any kind of dream? Let's not forget the public doesn't acknowledge nor want to do anything about the fact that their country is a S3 Tietler colony. If the foundation is diseased, the building will crumble eventually. Wake up. Only the people united by a common cause can bring change.
And Horace Horse wrote,
This is what Vice needs to be, not a bloated Shane Smith desperately clinging to what remains of his festering soured celebrity status as he shows how he has zero principles and pivots to the right. Just kidding. He's never favored either side. He's always been purely pro Shane Law.
At Leslie ES5IJ wrote,
Don't let them steer the conversation away from universal health care. If our government was for the people, they would get rid of insurance companies and mandate universal health care. We need Bernie Sanders to head it up now.
At Khadija Legonier wrote,
It's true. This person is not lying. I worked in a hospital to get people's insurance info or sign them up for insurance if they didn't have. It was a miserable job, and I was led by soulless, apathetic idiots. We had to constantly call patients, family members, and even friends to make sure the hospital got paid, even if the patient was dead. There were cases that were so tragic and triggering, and my coworkers just told me you'll go numb and just stop caring. I knew from that point I had to quit. I gave it 6 months.
At Enwin VR wrote,
The stupid, spooky music in the background, it's obnoxious and takes away from the real and important things this person is saying. This topic is serious. Making it all hyper dramatic and Hollywood is taking away from the message.
At Be Free 8 wrote,
St. Luigi, the saint of karma for people who are sick or injured who have had people unjustly sit in judgment of them and decide if they live or die.
Vice wrote,
Watch next. Nightmare Confessions of a Former Shell Consultant. https://youtube.com. Our informer spent over 10 years working as a health and safety officer for the petroleum giant and told us what she heard directly from thousands of fossil fuel workers around the world.
At Gretchen Smith 5049 wrote,
Not gonna lie, I hate all insurance companies, auto/home, medical, dental. They only care about their bottom line. I got screwed on vacation. Got rear-ended when traffic on freeway went from 45 miles per hour to stopped. Slammed into car in front, airbags. Ended up needing a 3-level neck fusion. Only saving grace from bankruptcy for me, my medical insurance covered my fusion, which cuts cost in 1/2. B/C policy maximums, I was paid a small amount for a life-altering wreck. Had my medical not paid my fusion, I wouldn't have had anything at all. Regardless, I ended up owing my medical for my fusion. I walked away with less than 1/3 of my policy maximum settlement. I lost my job, house, and dream of living in PNW. I had to move back to SWUSA to be closer to family. Insurance companies will never make you whole despite kinda saying they will. You'll get screwed unless you get an attorney. Yet, you still get screwed. B/C policy maximums are minimal. Anyone who is around cars can have their life drastically altered and lessened with no fault themselves. Stupid insurance companies and their lobbyists.
At Nubian Beauty 9389 wrote,
I work in the insurance industry and always fought for the members. I truly blame the doctors behind the scene denying authorizations. Auth Department are a group of providers that decide your fate.
At Lucent Colors wrote,
Such a great system. I'm a college student from a single mother household. I can only hope I get a job with health insurance benefits. I have a lump on my testicle that's slowly grown, and I won't go to a doctor because none of my family are insured, and I won't burden my family with the costs. I won't even tell my family about it or any mental health complications I might be experiencing. And I just hope it's harmless or not too complicated, since I'm okay with being infertile as long as it's not cancer. My aunt had cervix cancer and has been paying debt for her treatment, working 2 jobs alone since I was in elementary school. I don't want to subject my family to that, so I'll just dig my own grave and hope it will all work out. Sadly, my life isn't worth much as long as those make their bottom line.
At Sefk 9944 wrote,
Sometimes I wish hell was an actual place. Just so, whenever they themselves kick the bucket, I could be sure they'd end up in there.
A Poltergeist wrote,
Insurance is a scam for bozos. People who work for them, like this masked bozo, are no better than the people at the top. Leeches calling leeches leeches at the end of the day, it doesn't affect me. Apart from bozos, making other bozos richer to the point it will be my problem. If the whole pyramid scheme collapsed and every one of them rotted, I wouldn't lose sleep.